So I go to them and say, look, let me find lost money, put it back to work. Let me talk to you about velocities. Let me talk about the rules of financial institutions. Let me get you organized, show you how it would be, and I won't charge you anything. I'll do it for no additional out-of-pocket cost. But if I create value, if I can find money and put it back to work, if I can create the $2 to $5 million of wealth I think I can create by finding lost money and put it back to work, just give me a chance.
Hey, welcome into a special edition of Success Leaves Clues. We are off-site for this episode. First of all, I had a great workout in this morning in the Three Kings. But now I get to sit down with Scott Jarrett, who's not even a financial advisor, almost like a wealth coach. And we're going to find out about how his strategy is so different than anything that I've ever seen in the financial advisor realm. And I had a conversation here last week, and I was like, man, I got to have you on the show and really just educate you all about how you can take your finances to the next level, how you can invest in addition to the market, but in businesses and ideals and in yourself. And really his platform is very unique, so I want that opportunity to talk to you and let you kind of share your story and like what makes you so special and how you were able to grow your business over the last couple of years, man. So welcome on to the show.
Thanks, Gary.
Awesome. So first introduction, I think we were here last week, and I love the first question that you asked your potential clients when they come and work out with you. I thought that was a great question to like get started with, because it's all about protection. And so what is your first question that you typically ask when you sit down with someone?
How's your mind, right, Gary? Where are you at?
Right. So the question the question was like, you're talking about like the protection in terms of like if you got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So the question's always, 3 years from now,
right?
What has to happen for our time together to be worthwhile?
Right.
Like what are some of the things that are going on in your life that are opportunities that you want to take advantage of? What are some of the strengths that you possess? What are some of the dangers that are out there, and what are some of the threats? Right. So when someone comes in, it's more about not about us, it's about them and what they're really trying to do. So everyone has opportunities, they have strengths, they have dangers, they have threats. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times you start hearing about all the dreams and the goals and things that people want to accomplish, and there could be an issue. There could be a threat that is either perceived or non-perceived. They know that it's not, like right now we have a threat, right, of COVID-19 is going to stop the world, right? That's a threat that's out of our control. So how are you going to take advantage of the future opportunities, what your bigger future would look like, and what's the new normal look like, right? So those are things that are like right in front of us right now. So as you go through it, right?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So in terms of like the threats, you said real or perceived, but a real threat is how is your protection set up?
Right.
And I think I love the analogy or the question was like, if you get hit by a car, what happens to you?
What happens, right?
Or conversely, if you hit, like God forbid, if you hit someone by a car,
right?
Like how are your assets protected?
Right. How are you protected? So like right now we don't really think of the bad things that could happen in life, right? So we're going out, we're doing our thing, and we never realize what's out there. So before I ever meet with someone, you're in what we call your present position. Mm-hmm. We don't know what the future is going to be. We don't know what change and chaos and different crisis moments that we're going to have. We know we're going to have a series of them in our lives, and how do we react to those is what's important. So what we do know for sure is where we presently are. So we're here. We know what our assets look like. We know what our liabilities look like. We know what our net worth looks like. We know what our income is, right? We know what our protection is. So we look at things four-dimensionally, and once we know what the present position is, we put them into, it's like a football, right? We know we got, so many guys in the field, we got somebody on offense, somebody on defense, we're here. This is our present position. Right. So now we can move. So we look at it and we go, hey, I have all the information, right? So I'm looking at these 19 areas, I'm evaluating. So one of the most important things you look at is car insurance. It's the first thing, right? You got car insurance, homeowners, and liability insurance. Those really only protect your assets. So the thing is, Gary, if you get into a car accident and it's Budweiser beer truck that hits you, how much money do you want?
All right.
So how much money do you want, Gary?
Yeah, a lot. 10 million. Like
it's Budweiser.
Yeah. 20 million. Like Tracy Morgan, right? There's an undisclosed amount, right? That's what I want.
Right. I want that. I want beer for life. Beer for my friends for life. Like, we'll call it a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they have a big legal team. Their legal team's going to come back and say, well, what were you making? Like, what was your income earnings for your life? What was all that going to look like? And you're going to go out and get your attorney, right? You're going to find one of the billboards and call the guy and say, hey, I need help. 1-800-ASK-GARY. Right?
Yeah.
So they have them in Tampa. And they come out and they will say, well, this is what we're due. This is what they're due. So what they're going to come back to their conclusion says, what was the human life value? What was the economic value of loss that happened? So
and that's calculated by your earning potential, and then maximized by your lifetime expectancy.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're 40 now, congratulations.
Thank you.
And you make $100,000 a year.
Right.
So 40 to 65, right? We got 25 years of earnings.
Yeah.
Right.
2.5.
So so if I gave you $2.5 million in a check today, and you put it in the stock market and you earn 5%, it would pay you $125,000.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit more than what you're currently making. So on an economic value, they're gonna say, look, I'll give you the $2.5 million. That's really what you would. So now you don't have to work anymore, as you can't, and we'll call it a day. That's your economic value. That's what we would want to protect you against.
The crazy part is like some people think, or a misconception would be, no, they have $1 billion. Like, I want to sue them for $100 million, and like it doesn't work like that, right?
I mean, you can sue them for whatever you want. Right?
Yeah, it's actually what you're gonna get.
Yeah, what are you gonna get? So if it's Budweiser, you may have a much more higher likelihood to get more than $2.5 million. Right. But what happens if the guy hits you isn't Budweiser?
Yeah.
It's like someone without car insurance, or just a normal person. Because we have people come in all the time and they've got their car insurance. Here's my car insurance. They got $100,000 liability. State minimums are like $25,000 or $50,000 depending on what state you're in.
Yeah.
So in that case, then they'll pay out $100,000. And what did you just do? Well, you just self-insured yourself for $2.4 million.
Yeah.
Right. So now, if the tide turned and it wasn't Budweiser, which is probably more likely, and it's someone without car insurance or normal liabilities, now you just decided to make a decision, whether you knew it or not, to self-insure yourself for $2.4 million.
Wow.
Right? And most people have no idea that that's even the case. And the problem is the car insurance person they're trying to be the lowest priced. So they're saying, hey man, just do it this way. Or worse, they're getting taught by the insurance company because their goal is to give you as little amount of coverage as possible, but charge you the most for the policy. Your goal is to pay
the highest power.
highest benefit for the least amount of cost, right? So they may have we'll have low deductibles, right? You wreck your car, it's $500 to fix the car. You pay $500, your car's fixed, and then lower that down, right? So the insurance company's taking on the small risk, and you're letting them not be on the hook for the catastrophic. Right. So if it's not Budweiser that hits you, then that's the situation. But what happens if you hit a guy that's making that money, and it's your fault, and then they come after you for the money? What happens to your earnings now? They would have an attorney, you would have an attorney. They come out, and they said they would sue you. You don't have the money. Then you would have to be paying out of your earnings. So that would be very hard to grow when you have this lingering. So now we're figuring out, do we move to a third world country and call it a day? Or what do we do, right? Do we bankrupt ourselves? What is it? So those are the scenarios that you start to go through. And people don't even think about it because they're so focused on wealth building, right? That the protection piece is the one thing they can control, but they forget about it.
Yeah. So that's fascinating. So in that scenario for yourself, what do you look at? You look at, obviously, I want to have a policy that has a pretty large cap that I can pay for, and then is that backed by an umbrella policy over yourself or your house, or how does that? What's the structure?
Yeah, exactly. So umbrella liability insurance is what you would look at, and it's very inexpensive. It's typically $200 to $300 per year per million.
Wow.
Good insurance advisors will recommend it. Others just don't. Some companies have gotten out of that business. They don't want to insure them anymore, but it is inexpensive. So you can get car insurance for a few $100 more, get $1 million umbrella. So if that person's making $100,000 a year, their protected amount would be, you're not allowed to get more insurance than what you're worth. You can't be overinsured. You can buy unnecessary insurance,
Right.
right? But you won't be overinsured. So you would buy that amount of coverage, right? Because they're only going to replace your value, or what the lawsuit is, but they're not going to give you more than what your value is. So for that, if you raise your deductibles, you free up dollars. Take the deductible savings, pick up the $1 million umbrella or $2 million, right? Because it'd be a stack. It'd be $250 on your car, $1 million, and you have a house of, let's say, $300,000 to $400,000, whatever it is, that price range. So now you're pretty close to $2 million at that point.
Yeah, and that's great because the umbrella it covers like injury at your house as well, right? Even if kids have a friend over and something happens,
right?
It will pick that up as well.
Yeah, it's funny too because I'll ask people, so if you have a house and it burned down, how much house would you want back? So if you have a 4-bedroom house, 3-bath, and all this stuff, and your house burned down, how much would you want? And what would you say?
Yeah, with the house, the same one.
But what do you need? What do you really need? Like, come on. Like, you could live in, a trailer, 1 bathroom. You guys could share it, right? You could cook outside. You've done a lot. So you really only need this, right? So the difference between needs and wants are two totally different things, right? So in a perfect world, you would get exactly the same house as what it was. It would be there. So if it burnt down to the ground, it would be right there. So it's your job to make sure it's insured for that amount. So a lot of people don't understand the difference between wants and needs. So they'll say, like, if I get disabled or I get sick and I can't work, well, how much money do you want coming in? Well, ideally, you'd want the exact same
amount,
right? But what do you really need? So what they do is they insure themselves if I get sick for a lesser amount. Their best asset. Your ability to go to work and generate income is your most important asset. But yet we'll spend more money on car insurance, homeowners insurance. We don't protect the goose. It's laying the golden eggs.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason why I think is because they don't feel like they try to live on a needs base versus what they should have. And the bottom line is it comes down to cost. They don't want to pay for something.
I think a lot of people's wrongfully have this mindset that it's not going to happen to me.
Right.
Like, my house is not going to burn down.
No.
So why do I have to? I spent $800K on my house. Like, I'm just going to insure for $400K. Right. If it burns down, surely it's not going to burn down to the ground.
Right.
Surely I could just rebuild the rest. But if it burns down to the ground, though, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's not there, right? My house burned down as a kid.
Wow.
And we had to go to them and show them everything that we had. Right? Because if you didn't do a video inventory of everything, they're like, yeah, right, you had that. Because sure, I had that toy or I had whatever. Right? Luckily, we were okay, so we really weren't that big of a claim. But then again, at the end of the day, it's your job to show them what you had. So most people don't have a video inventory. If they did, it's probably stored in the home computer that burnt down anyway.
Yeah.
It wasn't backed up and stored virtually, right?
Wow.
I mean, now it might be more so, but before, maybe not. So it's your job to identify what assets you have, schedule your rings, your Super Bowl rings, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So that way, if it's gone, like, if it's not scheduled, what's the value of it? Right?
Nah. So with my wife's Amazon account, like their past history purchases, would that be liable? Can I pull that up like as a look? This is what she spends a week on Amazon.
That'd be a good idea. I would keep all that as records just in case.
No, that's fascinating, man. So, man, great information. I think about not only wealth creation, but more importantly, wealth protection.
Right.
But probably doing a disservice if we don't talk a little bit about like your background. Like, how did you like get into the space? Why wealth advisory? And kind of what's your background? You're a former athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then
inside linebacker. No.
So walk us through where did you grow up?
Grew up in Greenwood.
Okay.
South side of Indianapolis.
God's country.
Yep, that's right. My father moved over here to open up Steak and Shakes, essentially. and then ended up losing his job or whatever, and my parents separated. So then my mom had to work, and was waiting tables. So I had 3 kids, or brothers and sisters, 2 of them. So I had to stay home with them while she would go to work, and we didn't have much. So we had to move into subsidized housing and all that stuff. And by 12 years old, I had a paper out and was figuring it out, going to the grind, trying to make money, trying to get through. We opened a carpet cleaning business and was fairly entrepreneur early on. And it wasn't till we moved, we were like in Indianapolis, then moved to Greenwood in 8th grade. And the basketball coach said, "Hey, you want to play basketball?" And I'm like, "Sure." So they got me some shoes, and next thing I knew, I was playing sports. And it was like, I loved it. And then I met some guys that were playing in like the seniors that were, one of the kids ended up going to Purdue. His roommate was Mike Allstott. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do that. So I was like, I'm going to do sports. So I just put all in, and luckily got a scholarship, and my C average got me in. But college wasn't for us, right? No one had gone. No one ever knew. Somebody'd ask, "Who's going to college?" We're like, "No, that's not for me." But sports was the gateway. Sports gateway. And then we got to college, and I was a criminal justice major because that was the easier degree. And then realized that this wasn't. I wanted to do more, and then just transferred. Thought I wanted to be an architect. Started doing architecture school, and then realized I couldn't draw a straight line. Then wanted to be a real estate developer, and then got a master's in technology because I knew technology was the future. So I went through all these facets and ended up getting a job in high-tech America. Moved to Atlanta. I'm doing corporate consulting for AT&T with big companies. Moved to Tampa as they bought a division of IBM, and we laid off all these people. And I'm like, man, where am I going to be many years from now? And I was like, I love entrepreneurship. I thought I was going to try to be a corporate guy. Found out that I was 100% unemployable, and thought that entrepreneurship was my way, and I just wanted to help other business owners do it, and that was our story. So my roommate at the time had some financial experience, so he quit his job first. We split my paycheck until we got the company up and running, and then once we did, then I quit, and the rest is history. We're in a lot of different states, and offering financial advice as the way that I would want to build, because I was always fascinated with money and how entrepreneurship work and the mindset and the athletic and all that stuff. So that's where we are today. So
man, that's awesome. And you have 4 different offices?
Yeah, so we're in how many offices? So we're in Indianapolis, Tampa, Fort Wayne, Sarasota. We got an office in Naples. We're in New Jersey, New York, Washington D.C.
That's more than 4.
Yeah, I think
That's 8. More than 4.
Yeah.
So that's great. That's and it's amazing because it's probably challenging as a small guy, independent, right? Going up against the J.P. Morgans of the world or the other big financial institutions.
Yeah.
In terms of just having your Jared Bunch consultant, and that's the name on all of the buildings, right? But I think what's unique is about your value proposition and what makes you different from all of those. So you had to talk about your value proposition that you offer your clients. What would that be?
Yeah, so for me, it was always understanding. When we originally started, I remember when I was in corporate consulting at AT&T, I would get called from financial advisors saying, "Hey, let me help with your money," and all this stuff. And I felt just a deep untrusting of what they were telling me, because I'd never had money before, and I knew that what I had, I would save 50% of it, and I'd want to make sure it was working right. And the advice I was getting I didn't feel comfortable with it. So
do you remember why? Do you remember what was the advice?
It was like put it into the stock market, buy insurance. They were telling me that they could pick different things to make me more wealth along the way. And I didn't feel like they had any wealth either. So I didn't know how they were going to create wealth for me, because all the people that had money were running businesses and they were financing deals and they were entrepreneurs. And I was like, you work for this company. How are you going to teach me how to manage my money? You know what I'm saying?
It was, I saw somewhere, it was like a joke. I don't know, one of the big Warren Buffett, somebody said, it was like 50%, 60% of America pays a guy in New York City who rides your train into work to manage their assets. So it was like, you're a guy who has no financial wealth, no financial well-being. He's just working for a company, and this is the guy that you trust with your future's legacies.
Right, and you find out their balance sheets aren't strong, or they don't have it. They don't use economic-based decisions to make their financial decisions. They don't have principles and rules typically, and a lot of times it's like the psychologist you go to get advice. They have more mental issues than the people they're talking to sometimes. But I don't know to say that for everybody, but it's
right.
I felt that I was a better steward of finances than that I was getting. Now, I could be wrong, right? But I thought there was a lot of misinformation. There was malpractice out there. They were selling products versus solutions. They were, that's what it was about. It was about whatever the product was they were trying to push on the people, right? Like even banks today, like they use the power of their ability to give loans. Say, look, I'll give you a loan, but then manage your money over here, make it a deal. Like that's your value is cost. So what we thought was the better way to do it was to educate about how money's done. So when I was going through school, we would learn principles. We would learn things about economics. We'd learn things about how like real estate investing was done and all this stuff. So like there's certain principles that was in the fundamentals of the education that we were taught. But when I take a CFP exam, they were teaching me things that were even applicable 90% of the time to like that real life. So it's like how do you so I was like, if we can educate people to make smarter decisions, understand their investor DNA, understanding the protection and the risks that are out there, not pushing a product, but talking about broad level of what that is. If we can guide them toward whatever that bigger future is for them and then counsel them along the way. And what I found was true for everybody is that they wanted to be as successful as they possibly could.
Right.
So we said, look, if we can educate, guide, and counsel toward reaching their full financial potential, then I think we have a good mission that we can build behind. So that's what we said. Our mission statement is to educate, guide, and counsel people toward reaching their full financial potential. And we really wanted money to work for people. So we said making money work for people, and that's really where we kept it. And then, so everything was about education, everything was about process, everything is about weighing and measuring, financial modeling versus planning, being in financial balance, weighing and measure financial decisions, creating your investor DNA, creating your investment policy statement, understanding your protection side, understanding that you have a balance sheet and you have a future balance sheet, you have a net worth and a future net worth, you have cash flows. So running a household like a business and making smart strategic decisions so that way you're in control, and then we go to the universe of products and selections out there and put them in the right position. That's the way we approached it. That being said, you can't go work for companies necessarily that offer that same philosophy, right?
Right. And one, most of the companies that are out there, they essentially have someone their limit on the products that they can offer based upon whatever institution that they work for.
Yes.
And in addition to that,
yeah.
is this correct? Like, and almost, and this is like beautiful when we met, because like you already there, but I legit was thinking like, yo, I'm gonna go take my Series 7 and everything and educate people on like why it's like so ass backwards. But in my mind, I had a mortgage company at one point, and it was like, hey, this week if you sell our loan, by the way, you get money on the back end. And I'm sure like the big institutions, that's how they work, right? They sell you different products based on the money that they get paid by the company for the products that they're pushing.
Yeah. So that's what they do. They create products, right?
Right.
So once again, a principle or rule is that there are rules of financial institutions, and we just nailed one on the insurance side, right? They want to give you a little amount of coverage as possible for the most cost.
Right.
You as a consumer want to pay as little as possible for the policy but have the most protection, right? So when we're making decisions, we need to understand the rules, because the rules of financial institutions are that they want your money, they want it systematically, they want to hold on to it for as long as possible, and they really never want to give it back. So
because they're investors and they know how to make arbitrage, right? So they're going to give you your money and give you 1% rate, and they're going to lend it to someone at 5%, and they're going to make 4 points.
Right. So you take your deposit at the bank where you think it's safe. You put your money at the bank, which is FDIC insured. Let's say whatever amount, like $250 to $500, depending on how they set it up. So you're FDIC insured. What that means is that their amount of deposits, they can go out and borrow from the Federal Reserve 10 times, right? So let's say they're getting 10 times that money back. Now they take that to loan to you for the car for 5%, for the house, right? For the spreads, maybe not 5%, but for a spread, right? So credit cards, right? 18%, they're borrowing at like 1, right? Federal funds rate are at 0 right now. We just went to 0. We're talking about going negative interest rates, right? So now the banks are making the spread from money that they just got it from the Federal Reserve, right? So when you look at the way the banking system's designed, and you look at why there's so many in every single corner, it's like, man, I want to be a bank, right?
Yeah,
I need to understand the rules.
It's a great gig.
Let's understand the rules.
Yeah.
Don't hate on them, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That'd be great to be a banker and make killing, right? Jamie Dimon and all these guys like killing it,
Yeah.
right? If you ever watch the new Billions, you see him over there. He's like sweaty. He looks over and all these dudes having fun in the corner. He's like, look at all those bankers over there, man. They got it good. Right? So, but the thing is that you got to understand the rules of that. Don't hate on it, dude. We live in America. It's great. Just replicate it. So what are the rules of financial institutions? How does velocities of money work, and how do you put them into your own system to create wealth for yourself?
Wow.
So instead of just embrace it and enjoy it and understand it and understand what's happening, educate, right?
So I think it's really the difference between that abundance mindset versus that scarcity mindset.
Yeah, well, first of all, yeah, so abundance is that all things are plentiful, right? All resources are available. Where scarcity is, you got to hoard,
Yeah.
and you got to hold, and you know the kind, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't.
Banks are, yeah.
You know what I mean? All that stuff. Or that friend, like, hey, we can't go out to you. I can't want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's pay for all your stuff, right?
Right.
Let's go. So we're thinking that that all things are great, right? So for you, coming out of all the things you went through in college, and it's like it's abundance, man. Everything's good. Like I'm good. Like whatever. Like it's just a matter of time. We're gonna hit. We're gonna move through. So that mindset's important because, like I said before, you have your series of chaos and crisis. It's time. It's how you react. And if you can, there's only 2 kinds of people. They're either abundant or scarcity. And the ones that can get out of scarcity quickest are the ones that recreate.
Right.
Which is why the first group out of right now are the ones that are entrepreneurs. The abundant thinkers are going to create the new robotics that's going to run the country. They're going to create the new systems, the new everything. It's going to create. We're going to be the first ones out.
And I think to that point, in every crisis, there's massive opportunity.
Huge opportunity. All great wealth is created in crisis.
Yeah. And that's
big wealth, right?
Big.
So you're talking about like Rockefellers. You look at like Warren Buffett. When 2008 and 9 happened, he's like, oh, we've been there. But he's got his newspaper clippings all over his office, reminding people what the market's like. So he goes to Goldman Sachs. Yeah, I'll give you money, 15% interest. I got to buy your stock at 90. This is how the deal's going to go down, and calm, right? So now he's able to create opportunity, and he was prepared, right? And that's what that financial balance is about: is preparation for when things are collapsing. You are in control to make decisions and be able to move and have that freedom to embrace your abundant mentality, right? And the people that have figured that out, that's the common theme between all successful people.
That's good. That's good. I want to touch on something that you talked about, and I think it's important because I feel like a lot of people suffer from like this SOS, I call it shiny object syndrome.
Right.
And always want to like grab on the next idea, the next thing. But I think what's really important is understanding your investor DNA. And from there, like just like we talked about principles, all your decisions should be made based off like your investor DNA. So talk a little bit about like your investor DNA.
Yeah. So like shiny objects, right? So we talk about track record investing. We talk about looking back to see what something did to create. So right now it's like you'll see that, oh, these certain things did better than these others, so I'm going to go here. Right, so you're using the back performance to look backwards. So if you look at a given portfolio, most of them come back in. They're really very overweight in these certain places a lot of times. So you're seeing things like even the advisors are going away from real rules-based, principles-based investment strategies to track record investing, looking at what worked, and that's where they're going into. So that's how investor portfolios I find are very designed. A lot of them don't have the same rules or evidence of how those things are performing through. Because what an investor DNA would say, what is your investor DNA? Like what is it that you feel comfortable with in something? So the right way to understand your investor DNA is to start. Any real smart investor would always want to understand one thing. Do you know what that would be? Like, if you're going to make an investment, what's the one thing you'd want to know?
The what is it? Beta delta, like the risk versus reward.
How much could I lose? Right?
Yeah.
Exactly right. So if I'm going to make an investment into, it could be a stock, it could be an investment, it could be into a business. Do you want to understand your downside? Right. So risk to return, exactly. So I'm looking at what's that. So everyone's got that comfort of where they are. Are they going to stick through it? Right. So when this whole thing hit and the market went down 40%, we're all sitting around here like, let's go. This is it. Let's do it. We're ready. Right. Because now everything's on sale. Everything's cheap. Right. Real estate, businesses, everything's like on sale. Like Amazon dropped 40% and went poof, right back up. Right.
So this is a question I've always wondered. Right. So is it like a zero-sum game? So if it drops by 40%, are there winners in that? Like, does that money that people lost go to someone else? How does that work?
Well, that stock price dropped, right? So it's gone.
So that money just gone.
It's gone.
So you just lost.
Yep. So cut more.
Wow.
Right. So inflation, right? So you're worried about asset prices. So when we put more money into the system, right, that's bringing asset prices back up, right? So don't hate on it, understand it. And there's some good books out there like The Case Against the Fed, Understand the Gold Standard, right? Understanding how the systems are built, right, and what they are. That's very important. So your investor DNA is different. Like, so I meet with very high-powered entrepreneurs, like car dealers, people that build apartment complexes, restaurateurs, doctors, and all that. Some will say that I don't believe in paper assets. I believe in hard assets. That'd be an investor DNA, right? Like, I believe in hard, tangible assets. So it's like, great, you buy those. That's where your portfolios and your business assets are. But you still need a cash management strategy. Like, if you're really smart, you have cash. And how do you manage that? So understanding and uncovering what your appetite for risk is, understanding what your evidence and rules are for your investments and all your investment decisions, right? But if I give money to someone for a loan, for a building, for real estate, I got rules, right? I need a certain amount of return. I need collateral. I need to have a world-class operator. I need to make sure things are going if I'm going to be in the financing business, right? So,
and I think you hit on a point, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands the paper cash flow and the hard assets. Like, when you invest in a hard asset, your money is tied up. It's not. You wouldn't call that a liquid investment.
It's a liquid, yeah.
It's illiquid, right?
There's no market for it.
Right.
There is a market, but
at a price. It's at a discount, so you're probably not going to maximize your value.
Right.
If you need to look.
There's no readily a market, right? So the stock market, right? You can buy and sell frequently, right? In real estate, you got to go put it on the market. There's a market, but it's not an efficient market like trading, like what that would be.
Right. So the mindset would be, all right, my philosophy is I want hard assets, so that's fine, but you still gonna need capital to take advantage of opportunity to buy hard capital, and that capital you just shouldn't be sitting idle in the bank, right? We already talked about how that works. So you put it in some paper, and then that paper you can get in and out of and have it, put it in a way where it's kind of protected.
Right. So you buy debt, and it pays you an income, right? You buy a stock, it pays you an income. So what we're talking about is what's my risk of loss, and what a real good investor would do is they would be investing for cash flow. So what's a cash flow? So like, how am I a cash flow investor? So what cash flow would I kick out? Because really, if you're making 100, what's your goal? Like, my goal for my clients, they may not be able to articulate it all the way, but I was like, really what you're telling me is you want to be independently wealthy. You want to be work optional. You want to make decisions on your own terms versus someone else's. So the moment that you have $100,000 of passive income coming in, meaning you got $2 million sitting somewhere generating that flow, is when you're independently wealthy.
Right.
So the question is, how fast can I get you there? Right. So if I buy that real estate, I buy that apartment complex, or I buy that hotel, or I buy that strip mall, or I buy that business, what's the cash flow? What's the EBITDA? What's the number that's coming out? Bottom line on that investment, right? And then what's my risk of volatility, right? Like, that's the way you start to look at investing.
Wow.
Being a cash flow investor, that's part of that investor DNA. It's part of that psychology, the way you build out your stuff. So I'll find high-powered entrepreneurs that have these great businesses, and they've got tons of cash sitting, and they've not figured out how to build up the next level. That's why you see these guys create private equity funds. They create the Bain Capitals. And we talked about Ray Dalio and these guys and how they do it. But that's their next evolution. Now they have this pot of money. Now they become a financier and they become a new thing. And that's how they evolve.
So it's it's challenging because a part of your business is education, and as an athlete, professional athlete, we would get different type of education from the NFL, and a lot of it is like CYA, right? Cover your ass. We told you so. Don't mess up your money. But I think from an entrepreneur and an athlete, right? They're all corporate athletes. They're all like their own companies, if you will.
Yeah.
But I think the mindset that I had when I was young that's changed now is that you were looking to create wealth through like an untapped market. Like you felt you could only create wealth if you were the next Facebook, if you were the next business that was written down on a napkin and you invest in that. But the volatility of those deals are just so high. And it's amazing now just looking at investment portfolios where it's like, no, like 10%, 50% is great if it's repeatable. Like you don't need to 20x, 100x your money.
Right.
Like over time, you can invest in like safer, less volatile things and still grow, as opposed to this swing for the fence on every deal mentality that like is very harmful.
Yeah. So NFL player, it's like, what can I tell my younger self, right? So if you go back now and tell your younger self something, you're just too young. You haven't experienced it. As a matter of fact, my job was to play football, like up until that point, and it was like not to get the degree, just keep your grades up so you can keep playing, right? So the focus wasn't on that. It was really, and I felt that way. I felt like my network and the people that I was with, I didn't think that football thing would ever get me there because I wasn't exposed to the business people, the entrepreneurs, and that stuff when I was in it.
Right.
So for a real, I was a wannabe trying to get there, but like the guys that are really at that level, that is their profession. That's where they're whole in, and they need to be all in. So to be a master at all this other stuff is very, very hard challenge. So when you get money and you get game checks and it's in the sums that it is, it just goes in the bank account. And it doesn't matter if you're an NFL player or any of us. If it gets to your checking account, it finds a home. Yeah. And it finds a home quick, as you know.
No
Amazon, all that, it's gone, right? Yeah. So that's the thing, is the rules and the habits haven't been formed yet because your older self hadn't told your younger self what to do, and you don't even understand how that is because you're getting it from so many different people, and what you're actually a target, right? So everyone's trying to take, and so you're in that. So it's very hard to run your business that way when you know your lifespan's like 3 to 4 years, maybe, right? And it's going to be all at once, and you just hit the lottery. That's why most average lottery tickets winners are broke. Most NFL or professional athletes are broke 3 years after retirement, is because of they've never been taught. Most trust fund kids that were never educated are broke. I mean, it's across the board. It has nothing to do with that profession. It has to do with just it's just the age thing and all that.
And it's education.
It's education. And but then again, is it important to you at that time? So we can teach you all day long, but if it ain't important, it's like, I didn't have anything before. I'm gonna go have a good time, and if go back to that. Right. Is that really that bad? So others really do care and want to make it. So if they have the right mindset, they love their family, they want to be abundant, they want to really make sure they're set up for the future, then they'll listen, and you can give them the education that they need to succeed. So the NFL struggles with it because you have so many. You're trying to please the masses, I think, is where the issue is, and then you're trying to go to a bunch of different. So the best thing you can do is to make sure someone doesn't be fraud. They don't steal or they don't take. That they're being truthful and they've got a good back engine. I guess is what I see.
That's great
from my NFLPA experience.
Yeah, and I think what's great about what you all do is you have a wealth fit program. So you have an educational piece that allows your clients or people that work with you to build that education while they're building their wealth.
Right.
So talk about the wealth fit. How was that created, and what exactly is that model?
So it came from the education platform. It came from for people like me that are highly ADD, they can only pay attention for a few minutes.
Guilty.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I get bored very quick. So it's financial interval training. So we can do short sprints of, like we did today in the workout, right?
Yeah,
we can do that for 6 rounds and get through it in 15 minutes. We're good, right? If we do that one every day, we're going to get better, right? So that was the idea of taking the key concepts, these 19 areas, and break them down into these structures with the end result. You have a financial plan, essentially, or you know how to position yourself, and you can understand what a balance sheet is, what a net worth statement is, what is a cash flow, what's an investor DNA, what's all that stuff, into a format that maybe you're a do-it-yourselfer and you don't want to have the one-on-one coaching that way. So we've got close to 10,000 subscribers now on the platform. We've offered it through a lot of our employer-sponsored retirement plans for employees and things of that nature. So that's what the system is, and it's really the back end of our private wealth process that we would take it's the same conversation you're gonna have with a very wealthy person. It's just the principles are still the same.
Yeah, now that's amazing. I think it's a definitely value add.
Yeah.
Because a lot of other financial institutions, they don't have that.
No.
They just think, hey, I'm going to fly out to one of your games, and afterwards we're going to dinner, and I'm going to sit down and talk to you about your portfolio and teach you everything you need to know about investing.
What about the 19 other areas I got going on? You look at my car insurance, my home insurance, my liability, wills trust, my disability insurance, my employer-sponsored benefits. How do I buy my debt? Do I have my leverage is set up properly? Do I know what my future cash flows are going to look like? There's so much more to it than that. So it's a lifelong thing, right? You don't just work out once and get fit. It's a ongoing, never-ending, evolving process, and that's why it's educate, guide, counsel throughout. But once you get the principles, then you can start going. So like, eat healthy, exercise, right? You can be fit and have, that stuff. It's the same. That's the concept. That's what we wanted to help deliver. But the financial institutions say, look, if you got $500,000 or more, I'll work with you. My concept was, do you have the right mindset? Do you love your family? Are you willing to grow? All right, you're a perfect client for us. Never sized them up by a checkbook, right? Because I never liked that when they sized me up when I walked in the room. Oh, a kid from the hood, whatever, has no money, like, whatever.
But I think that mentality is so great because if they don't have that, and if they do have money, that money's not going to last. So now they're working with clients that potentially maxed out, right? And they're just, all right, I'm going to scarcity mode on everything I got, as opposed to working with clients that are abundant and thinking about growth and growing. And most of your clients, if I'm not mistaken, like actually end up growing, right? No matter where they start, it's like where you end, it's where you finish.
Yeah. So I go to them and say, look, let me find lost money, put it back to work. Let me talk to you about velocities. Let me talk about the rules of financial institutions. Let me get you organized, show you how it would be, and I won't charge you anything. I'll do it for no additional out-of-pocket cost. But if I create value, if I can find money and put it back to work, if I can create the $2 to $5 million of wealth I think I can create by finding lost money and put it back to work, just give me a chance. Let's let me help you with that once we build it. And that was my original conversation, because here's a 20-some-year-old kid that just got out of college that had a few years in a corporate job that never had any money to go out and talk to high-powered entrepreneurs and let me show you how to be the way, because I was the dude driving the subway in, right? And I'm like, but here's how this is going to go, right? This is what it is, and I'm not even going to charge you. Let me figure it out. And then those people built businesses and created it, and then they started going and all that. So now we're doing our next series and all this stuff as those are going. So those friends of mine that were in their 20s, because I just worked with my friends, and then they started things and these different businesses and stuff, and that's how we did it.
So in regards to your business model, like, what does that look like in 3 years?
For us, so it looks, I'm glad you asked that. So yeah, we will have probably $3 billion under management at that time. We will have 50 advisors, I would say. We'd probably be in 15 different cities offering financial education. We would have over 50,000 people on our WealthFit platform being educated and learning and building a better way for financial literacy in the world. So we have a mission to a million people independently wealthy, free from financial worry, and living the life they want. And that's where we are. That's what we want to get to. So, but 3 years from now, that's the way we think that's projection of what that our firm will be looking like.
Now that's awesome. So what is your definition of independently wealthy?
Independently wealthy would be where your expenses are covered by passive cash flow, where you don't have to work for it.
Wow.
So you're now work optional. You have enough money coming in from your life's work where you are free from any decisions that are outside of what you want to do.
That's beautiful. Now, like, not that you have like, I think you said enough as terms of an elevator pitch in terms of someone that should consider you, contact you, but like, if someone's like in a position now where they're not happy at their financial institution, they haven't been educated, they're kind of in this one size fits all model. Like, what's the opportunity or what's the decision that they make to contact you all and kind of like getting more information about how do they, have you kind of look at their assets and kind of figure out, are you a better fit for them?
Yeah. Okay. So like on our website at jaredbunch.com, it's real simple. There's a quick fact-finding questionnaire that will give them a baseline and it asks us questions like 3 years from now where you're going to be, understanding your debt drawdown and where you currently are, would help us really start to get a framework of are they a good fit for next level coaching and development on the financial side. We took a lot of the financial stuff out of it. It was more about like the mindset questions, right? So it's just a quick assessment that you go through very quickly, and it gets into one of our advisors, and then we follow up, and then the first step would be to really get them organized and really showing them here are all the inefficiencies that you have right now, and here's what we see almost like a physical checkup essentially, and that's how it goes, and it's very simple and seamless.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. Now, so last question, not asked. Everyone who's on the show this is the name of the show, the podcast is Success Leaves Clues, and the reason why I entitled it that is because like I've had this sense of guilt of living a privileged life and being able to have conversations in rooms that other people aren't privy to. So we talked about knowing the games and understanding them and getting information. And most people like never heard like a financial advisor talk about different type of things in education. So it was amazing for people to kind of get that information. But if there was like one clue that you think kind of led to your success that you can drill down on, like what would that be in terms of your final clue as a takeaway for the people that are listening to this, that are watching this? What would be that clue?
I think it echoes a lot to what you're saying, is that I've had the ability to be in the rooms with a lot of successful people and see the back end of what they're doing, which is what created what we have now. Had I not had that ability, I don't think we definitely wouldn't be able to create what we have right now. So the clue is really be mindful of, like you said, what books you're reading and who are the people that you're hanging out with, right? Because that usually breeds success, right? If you can really start to surround yourself with that environment, that you're going to figure things out, just like I did. If you looked at all the success and all the stuff that I went through, I was always surrounding myself with something, whether it was the kid that was going to college, that I was surrounding myself and absorbed in it, right, to get to where we are right now. I think that's a common theme I see quite a bit.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. It's a saying that goes, there's nothing wrong being a copycat as long as you're copying the right cat.
That's right. Exactly.
And then you think following others, learning from others, not making those same mistakes, man, is really how the wealthy, kind of survive, how to get there, sustain it.
And you think about it, like, there's so many people that do that. Like when in these coaching programs that I go to, you look around the room and some of the most successful people are in these things still. Like, why are you going to these things anymore? Why are you always doing self-improvement, right? So I spend a considerable amount of money on self-improvement and development. I mean, it's insane, like what I do just to keep going. And if you look at the really successful people, it doesn't matter who they are, they're doing that stuff. Like Mark Cuban was on with us on our little group, just talking to us about what to do going forward because he went to IU. Like, he's always trying to go. So he's surrounding himself and being in and doing Shark Tank and being in them. Like, if you look at those kinds of people, like, I'm just thinking of the people we talked to in the last few weeks. Like, Like, what is that? Like, it's crazy. And that's the common theme I see. Like, and like guys that, like, I talked to one of my friends, it's a New York Times bestseller, and he was like, I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I finally got on a plane. Like, where are you going? He's like, self-improvement. Like, self-improvement? Why do you need self-improvement? Yeah, I'm gone for a week doing this thing. Or, it's that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay. Just like, once again, it's fitness, it's training, and all that stuff. And what happens is you get stuck in it, and then you're not working on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not right, then you're not going to be clear and be able to generate, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why you've got so much more energy now, probably than ever, is that you can now be clear and grow and really get into those high-powered conversations that will change the future of the world, because people need that more than ever. Yeah. Which is what your academy is going to do, and this kind of stuff.
Awesome. That's it. I think what I've learned is the number one investment that you can make is in yourself.
Yep. And
you just hit it, right? The books that you read, the people that you hang out with, the amount of money you invest in these programs, man, they pay back tenfold.
Your best investment's all in yourself.
Yep. That's
what I start with. It's like, before you invest in the stock market, before you go and do anything else, you better make sure yourself's right.
Nah, no doubt. Well, I appreciate it, man. Yeah. Thank you so much, man. This has been great. Definitely dropped some clues, some bombs, and definitely look forward to continue our relationships. And who knows, man? It might be more and more podcasts, so definitely appreciate it, man. Great workout, great start to the day.
That's right.
And then roll right into it, man. So we're gonna go ahead and pound it. We
That's
usually dap up. You know what I'm saying? We're social distancing still. We're definitely happy that you were able to be here. Definitely, if you're interested in learning more about us or learning more about the Successful School podcast, GaryBrecker.com. Definitely sign up for our newsletter, and also check out Champions Academy. We have some mindset training in there as well, and definitely get your mindset right. That financial fitness that we talked about, so you make those wise financial decisions, grow your wealth, but most importantly, protect it. And the best thing is to invest in yourself and your own education. All right, y'all. We'll catch you on another episode of Successful School.